Modern language models are getting hungry for memory, and the real culprit hides inside attention itself. Every time a model generates text, it caches the keys and values of every previous token. And with full multi-head attention, that cache can balloon until it dominates your GPU memory and throttles how many requests you can serve at once. So here's the tempting question. What if you could shrink that cache dramatically, speed up inference, and lose almost no quality at all? That is exactly the quiet trick behind GQA, and it is now the default in models like Llama and Mistral. Let's dig in. First, let us see where GQA sits between two familiar extremes. Standard attention gives every head its own queries, keys, and values. That delivers the best quality because each head can look at the sequence in a completely independent way. But there's a price to pay. The KV cache has to store a separate set of keys and values for every single head, and that is precisely what grows huge and devours your memory on long contexts and large batches. The grouped variant splits the difference elegantly. Instead of one key value head per query head, it divides the query heads into a handful of groups, and every head inside a group shares a single set of keys and values. Picture 32 query heads sharing 8 key value heads. The cache shrinks by that grouping factor, while the quality stays essentially indistinguishable from full attention. So how do we travel from full attention down to a shared cache? Follow the spectrum one step at a time. Start at the far end of the spectrum. Every query head gets its own dedicated keys and values. This is classic multi-head attention, maximum expressiveness, and maximum cache. Nothing is shared here, so nothing is saved. Now group the query heads together. Instead of treating all 32 heads independently, you bundle them into, say, 8 groups of 4. This grouping is the whole idea, and the number of groups is the single knob you get to tune. Let each group share one key value head. Every query head inside a group still asks its own questions, but they all read from the same shared set of keys and values. 4 queries, one shared pair, repeated across the groups. And the cache shrinks by the grouping factor. 8 key value heads instead of 32 means the KV cache is 4 times smaller, inference runs faster, and remarkably, benchmark quality barely moves. That is why this landed as the default. Strip it down, and 3 ideas capture group query attention. Query heads share keys and values in groups. Rather than a unique key value set for every head, a handful of query heads pool into a group and read from one shared set. It is the exact middle point between full multi-head attention and single shared multi-query attention. It shrinks the KV cache with negligible quality loss. Cutting the keys and values by the grouping factor slashes the memory bottleneck for long contexts and high throughput, and yet accuracy on benchmark stays essentially the same. That combination is rare enough to feel like a genuine free lunch. It is the default in modern large language models. Llama 2 and 3, Mistral, and many others reach for it precisely because it captures most of multi-query attention's speed and memory savings without the instability or the quality drop. Its one dial is the number of key value groups. All right, let's lock in what matters. This variant lets several query heads share a single set of keys and values, a clean middle ground between full multi-head and multi-query attention. It sits on a spectrum. Full attention gives every head its own keys and values. Multi-query collapses them all to one, and group query lands in between with a few shared groups. The payoff is a much smaller KV cache and faster inference, with quality that stays essentially indistinguishable from full multi-head attention. That is why it is now the default in models like Llama and Mistral, tuned by a single knob, the number of key value groups. If you like attention internals explained without the intimidation, we unpack many more over at standarity.com. Come build your intuition with us.